Illinois faces some big challenges. Today, you're about to hear a truly honest analysis of the problems we face. Equally important, you'll also hear an in-depth discussion of some practical solutions. This is your radio source for stories, the insight, and the answers you won't hear anywhere else, not in the media, and not coming from Springfield. You're listening to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project. Now, here's your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Welcome to another edition of Illinois Rising. Dan Proft, co-host of Chicago's Morning Answer, weekdays 5 to 9 a.m. on AM 560, along with Amy Jacobson. And joining me is Pat Hughes, co-founder of the Illinois Opportunity Project. And this week, AFSCME, the state's largest public sector union in terms of state employees, made its largest ever political contribution to House Speaker Mike Madigan's political campaign fund. $767,000 transferred into friends of Michael J. Madigan, and he's got a lot of friends, particularly those in low places. And, of course, this is being distributed to state representatives and state representative candidates, Democrats, throughout suburban Cook and the Collars in particular, not limited there, also down in Metro East, Katie Stewart, some of the biggest beneficiaries of Madigan largesse. And it's interesting because we've talked about this before. People who, voters throughout the state, have a highly negative opinion of Michael Madigan. They don't like where the state is 4 decades into his lordship, number one. And number two, because of that, they're disinclined, less likely to vote for candidates who are financed by Mike Madigan. And the candidates that I'm talking about, the Sam Yinglings and Lake County, the Deb Conroys in Eastern DuPage, the Marty Moylans in Northwest Suburban Cook, Des Plaines Park Ridge, and so on down the list. We're talking about hundreds of thousands into the millions of dollars that Madigan has conferred to them to try to keep them in their position as roll call votes for him. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the last 6 weeks of the campaign.
Yeah, Dan, I think you always talk about connecting the dots. I think what the voters need to understand and our listeners need to understand is that there's a reason why AFSCME is giving this money to Mike Madigan, right? They've asked for a $3 billion increase in their contract. They want their pensions to be protected, the pensions that are bankrupting our state. So they give money to Madigan. Madigan gives it out to his minions so that they can keep doing the bidding not of the people of their districts, but the bidding of the public sector unions like AFSCME, and that's how this little cabal operates.
And so let's get a reaction from one of the candidates up against this money machine that supports Mike Madigan. She is Marilyn Smolinski. She's a Republican candidate, the Republican nominee for state representative, running against the aforesaid Marty Moylan in the Park Ridge, Des Plaines, and sliver of Elk Grove, Northwest Suburban Cook County District. And again, in the interest of full disclosure, in my private life, I run a PAC, and my PAC supports Marilyn Smolinski and will continue to do so for a lot of the reasons that we just outlined. Marilyn, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So as you're talking to people in district and walking door to door and going to events, I guess it's a two-pronged question. One is, what is the temperature of the electorate with respect to candidates like your opponent being financed by Mike Madigan? And number two, what is the awareness of it?
Oh, I think people are more and more aware of it, every day. I think people are now understanding that Madigan is the problem and that his culture that he breeds is the problem. And they just ask me, well, what can we do about Mike Madigan? So I tell them, listen, what we can do is stop voting for people who vote Madigan in as a speaker. And my opponents voted for Madigan all 3 times. And when we were in the Daily Herald at the board review, he said again, yes, if Madigan runs for speaker, I will vote for him again.
Marilyn, I think there's actually a video of Marty Moylan chanting on the steps of the Capitol or wherever, cheering Mike Madigan on. What in addition to the Madigan issue, which obviously he's very unpopular for great reasons, and Marty is his minion, he's a Madigan minion, what are the other main issues that people in the district are concerned about, and how are you addressing those?
The number one issue that I've seen going door to door is that people can't afford to live here anymore because of the property taxes. So taxes in general, they're worried about this progressive income tax and how it's going to affect them. They're also worried about property taxes. That's the number one across the board. And I think we're seeing that across the state as well. It's not just here in my district. And so what we're doing is talking to them about the 1% cap and putting that out as a marker and working towards it and making some structural reform. But I'm hearing every day, hey, listen, I had to leave Chicago. I'm out here in the suburbs now, but my next step is I'm leaving the state. I'm paying more in mortgage, and more in taxes than I am in mortgage. I can't afford to live here anymore, so I'd rather live out of state where I can continue to have the same the same lifestyle for less money.
And all that Madigan money is financing the same old campaign that Marty Moylan's run previously and that all the Democrats run, because they're not really running it. They're being run by Mike Madigan, and they're just following orders. But Moylan's been sending out mail to try and scare suburban families about guns. You have a company you started that teaches women self-defense. And there's two things about that mailer I wanted you to address. One is just the nature of your business and this kind of scariness that is Moylan is trying to propagate about you being a law-abiding gun owner. And then secondly, the nature of that mailer. When I saw that mailer, it struck me the way the pictures that he used of you, like on a roll of film, it was rather creepy, actually. I found it to be not pornographic is too strong a word, but certainly explicit. And I wonder how you received the pictures he used of you in terms of what you think he's trying to convey to the electorate.
Right. So, I promote safety and responsible firearms ownership. I always have. I always will. I don't like to call myself a victim, but I definitely am a survivor of a horrible circumstance. And I teach women about situational awareness and how to avoid certain situations, how to be prepared if you ever find yourself in a situation of domestic violence or being stalked, situations like that. So I've made that my life's work, right? That's what I do for a living. That's what I do every day. And so there are photos of me where I am carrying a firearm. That one in particular was taken here at my home by the Associated Press during an interview where they were talking to me about safety and about responsible firearms ownership. And it was a picture just taken to demonstrate how to use my actual product, which is an under your clothing undergarment that also holds either travel documents, other items, or can also hold a firearm. So I'm just demonstrating how to use my product. And then Moylan takes that photo and mocks it up to make it look, like you said, very explicit. I wasn't happy about it at all. I mean, he doctored it. He darkened it. It's done specifically to discredit me, to discredit my work. And, I'm not going to be intimidated by Moylan. I think it's disgusting. I think he should apologize. It's dehumanizing, not just to me, but to other women as well. And it's insulting. Listen, he's an elected official. This is the kind of culture that we see in Springfield, the kind of way that they attack women. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running to change that culture.
Marilyn, so what seems to me that's happening in your race is that Marty is claiming to be a champion for women, right? He's supporting the Equal Rights Amendment, but then in another breath, he'll doctor up a photo of his female opponent and make it look, as the word you termed, explicit. He's also been down in Springfield for the last several terms when there was no legislative inspector general and 27 sexual harassment complaints have gone unanswered and been swept under the rug, but yet he's continuing to support Mike Madigan. What do you say about the contrast between Marty, I'm a supporter of women, and the Marty that we're seeing in this mailer and what his activities have been in Springfield?
Yeah, Marty's not a champion for women. Marty doesn't want to see a woman who is empowered to be in a position of power. I mean, this is how low he's willing to go. He's willing to mock up photos of me to try to discredit me because, just to save his own skin, to save his own seat so that he can continue to protect Madigan. I mean, I just look at it as a way that he can't defend his own record, so he's trying to find ways to discredit me, and I think it's disgusting, and I think it's an insult, like I said, to myself and other women as well.
And so the question that you're sort of calling over the next 6 weeks and on November 6th, I mean, what do you want your communities, the communities that you're running to represent, what do you want those families to be thinking about, the question in their minds that they must answer when they go to the polls to vote in this race?
Well, I mean, do they want the same old thing? The same person who's going to go back and vote in Madigan and have the same circle and your property taxes continue to rise? Or are you going to vote in someone who's going to be a champion for women, who's going to be a champion for victims, who's going to work and bring solutions and work toward lowering our property taxes, work against bad policy that's affecting all of us, and just make it better for the people of the state? So they've got to make a choice. Do you want the same old thing, or do you want to bring in someone who's actually going to make changes?
She is Marilyn Smolinski. The website, MarilynForStateRep.com. That's Marilyn, MarilynForStateRep.com. Marilyn Smolinski, Republican candidate for state representative in the Park Ridge, Des Plaines, Elk Grove area, northwest suburban Cook. Marilyn, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.